I take entrepreneurship as a mindset. I think there are people who are entrepreneurs who are not yet running their own company because it's maybe a process for them. But I think it's a mindset. I also think there are people who are running their own companies who are not entrepreneurs.
Welcome to another Europreneur Podcast, and today a very, very special guest, dear friend, Taunya. How are you?
Hello, Neer. I am doing very, very well on this very rainy Belgian day, which means it's a typical Belgian day.
Because here's a typical sunny day in Tel Aviv, Israel. I just landed a few hours ago, and I'm very glad we winged this episode as well as let's do it now. Taunya is the regional chair for EO Europe. As you've heard before, she's a former actress or current actress?
I am former and current. I'm still acting. In between the soup and potatoes, I do a little bit of, everything.
I'll let you do your elevator pitch because there's a lot of things to discuss and we have a busy episode. So you ready?
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay, so I am Taunya Renson-Martin. I am an actress. I am an American. I moved to Belgium 23 years ago after I met my Belgian husband and married him 3 months after I met him. I came to Belgium, had 2 kids. When I had my second kid, I was trying to figure out what to do with all my freelance work, and a friend of mine said, "You should start a company. Super easy, no worries." And so I was like, okay. And I did. And now I have a company and I've had my marketing communication agency for 15 years now, which leads me to here with you, Neer.
You started with actress just because of the discussion before. This is how you start your presentation usually to present yourself.
I'm an actress. That's who I am at my core. That's my blood. That's what I study. That's what I know. So I'm an
originally from Washington, D.C.?
Originally from D.C., grew up in, born in D.C., grew up in Northern Virginia, went to school in Virginia as well, was living in D.C. and acting in D.C. when my husband, the Belgian tourist, came to the city and took me home as a souvenir.
Most people buy these snow things.
Yeah.
They don't get married.
You shake me, who knows what comes out.
How come, what made you start with acting?
I don't know. I think it's kind of in my blood and my family. My dad is a singer. He was a performer. My mom also did acting. She was an English teacher. And so I was from young age, like in ballet classes. If you look at any picture of me before the age of 10, I'm like a bumblebee, I'm a bird, I'm all these different kind of performance things. So I've been acting and dancing and singing from the earliest age. It was really performances in the family.
And that's what you studied? College,
yes.
University? Or...
Yeah. So, in the U.S. in high school, you can, you have electives, right? So you can do a lot of artistic things or sports things while you're in school. And so I already took acting classes when I was in high school. I was in the drama club, did theater. We did plays after school, and then went to university and got and majored in theater and minored in criminology, just in case. I need a backup gig.
You can write novels, then turn them into movies.
Exactly. Right? Or I could play really good lawyers. A really good lawyer. I was like, then I have at least the background. So.
I have a question about you raised your kids in Belgium. Do they also have all these learnings of arts, acting and stuff? Is that also common in Europe?
Yes. Yes, but I don't know. So yes, they have it. And I think it's somehow kind of created in it because it's not the same in school. They don't have, acting classes in school, but somehow they find it. So, I had, my oldest son, he's 20, and he's just gotten into radio. So he did Q Academy. So there's a Q Music station here in Belgium, and they have a kind of academy that you can audition and get into. And so he auditioned and was one of the few people that got into it. So he's doing a radio internship And then, of course, with social media, they were always, my kids were, I feel like as soon as they came out the womb, they were YouTubing and, and doing things. So it somehow seeped into their blood, even though they didn't have the same structures that I had.
Most of the EO members I've interviewed so far had some sort of a line of work, not always exactly connected to what they would end up doing as their businesses. How connected is media and marketing to acting? How much of that role play goes into your work?
I think one of the things I love about doing, the marketing communication stuff is that it's creative, right? So it's really problem and then conceptualizing how we can bring it, how we can solve that problem in a way that is entertaining and engaging for other people. So it's like, the way I would do now, hey, let's build a play. Let's create a scenario. Let's create a story. Let's take people on a journey and get them excited about something. So that I love. And I'm doing voiceover sometimes for some of the videos that we are producing, but I also have to hire voiceover artists. I have to hire actors. So I'm still creating. It's still theater. It's still film. That's exciting. And I have to say, business itself is improvisation. For me, it is. You say yes and you play the scene and you see what happens. And so I feel very equipped to do that, to do that part, even though I don't have a business degree.
You find sometimes that you instill some of these things into your employees. This is a methodology from acting. You should use it. Is that part of?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, presentation skills are important. So, trying to teach people even the small little tricks, right? That if you walk into a room with your upstage foot, you immediately are open to people. So it gives them a different feeling than when you are closed off when you walk in. So little tips like that, right? And I think the improvisation part is important too, that people are not limiting themselves or having limited beliefs that they can't do something. Say yes and play the scene and trust that you're smart enough to figure it out and make something happen. So I think those two tips, maybe. I don't know how useful it is for them, but...
First of all, I love it. Second of all, what we're discovering now that there are a lot of young students or aspiring entrepreneurs listening in Europe to these podcasts. So it's always nice. And some of them might ask, how do you decide that that's your man and you leave a country to move?
It's crazy. And so I love you. I'm so glad you asked this question because I'm going to give a tip to all these people out there looking for a relationship.
You to do this episode for them.
The trick is, at least I found, when you know. It is not that complicated. It is not, but I like him, but the timing is off. If it's right, the timing is right, the person is right, you feel good. I remember today's my 23rd wedding anniversary, I have to say. So
congratulations.
And I still remember the early days when I met my husband, and I could not stop smiling. People were like, what is going on with you? But it was just in every part of my being that this person felt exactly right. So it was, I didn't even have to think about it. Like, he asked me to marry him while we were in a bookstore. And there was an ad in a magazine, not anything he had set up himself, but the ad said, will you marry me? And we were looking at it, and he looked at it, looked at me and said, what do you think? And I said, okay. And this is a few weeks after knowing each other. So
wait, the bookstore was in the US or in Belgium?
And the bookstore was in the US. It was a Barnes and Nobles. Back in the days when they had bookstores.
They still have. Just now in New York, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's great. You can go there and read the books, have a cup of coffee, and leave without buying the book. I read lots of books that way.
I think 15 or 16 years ago, I went into the same bookstore in New York, and I saw the book series that does Something for Dummies.
Oh yeah, yes.
Said, wow, I have to do something, and I was fascinated by the concept of teaching.
What are you doing for dummies? Can I ask you, what are you doing for dummies these days?
Yeah. Hey, listen, Fuck the Slides is going to be for not dummies at all, but the book is going to come out. most of the people I meet are smarter than I am. I'm just teaching them how to create a good story.
There you
So
go.
I'm kind of inspired by the people I meet and I work with, which is interesting. It's always, how sometimes you work with people and you say they're amazing. I enjoy, they come for me for the consultation, but I really enjoy working with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I completely
And,
get it. That's my EO experience too,
and
actually.
then he says, you look at the dad and you say, yeah, Belgium. Did you know anything about, like, how does it work?
Did I know anything about Belgium before I got here?
Yeah. Except for
Oh,
French fries.
yeah, no, there was an exchange student when I was like 16. He was from Belgium. That's all I knew about Belgium. Was that guy. I I had been to Paris and I had been to London before I came here, so I did know that. Yeah, so I had a little bit of a European experience. Um, Here, funny story. So when I came to Belgium for the first time, I had already told my husband I was going to marry him. We'd already agreed on that, and I was going to come to Belgium, spend a week. We were going to get married on the weekend. We were going to do all kinds of like really low key kind of stuff, right? But I thought I'd tell my parents before I came to Belgium. So I said to my mom and dad, by the way, while I'm there, there's a high likelihood that I will marry Serge, who they had met once or twice before, that I might marry Serge when I get there. And my dad's first question to me was, but Belgium, is that even a democracy? American. That's a very American dad question.
Would they follow that?
Um, well, they met Serge and they liked him. And my dad is not cool with the fact that it was only 3 months that we'd known each other before we're getting married. But I knew that my mom and dad, who have now been married for 50 years, also only knew each other for about 3 or 4 months before they got married. So I reminded him of that. And
So you had a good leverage for that.
leverage.
Good thing and bad thing when you move to a new country, because I've never done it, so I'm interested.
The good thing is if you like to say yes and play the scene and make stuff up as you go along, then you get to do that all the time. So the good thing is everything was new. And because no one knew me, I kind of felt like I had free license to do what I want and to make the mistakes that I want and say crazy things that I want because nobody knows me anyway. So there's a lot of freedom in there. Probably why I ended up becoming an entrepreneur and all these other things that I might not have done if I was home and if I was comfortable in the U.S. when I say home. And then the bad thing about moving to a new country, really, there's not much bad stuff. In the U.S., things are highly convenient. Stores are open until midnight. Here, everything was closing at 6. I had a hard time getting used to that. Stuff was closed on Sundays. I was like, how do these people function? I don't understand.
It was raining a lot.
It was raining. Exactly. People were speaking another language. I mean, hello? No, I'm joking. But yeah, I had to get used to it.
I'm asking because it's always, for a lot of people, by the way, I think for Americans, it's very different because Americans can, like, you finish high school and if you go to another university, it's basically on the other side of the continent. It's called the same country, but it's like moving. And yes, there's the easy part is the same language. But I think for Americans, you can live your whole life without leaving the country, but basically you've done the whole continent.
Absolutely. I mean, I went back to my high school reunion. Do you know in the U.S., high school reunions are kind of popular. Maybe people see it on TV shows or TV movies or whatever. But and I went back to my high school reunion, and people were applauding me and congratulating me for moving to Europe. I mean, that was a big deal. That was better than like you got a job. It was, oh, you moved to Europe. Whoa, that's amazing, you know?
All you need is one person to come up to you and say, Belgium, is this a democracy? Is that a democracy? And you have that. So wait, you move and then what? How do you kind of found your place, freelancing, what
Yeah.
from acting to freelancing? What's
I'm very fortunate. My husband is a teacher and he's a very sociable guy. So he knows tons of people. So when I got here, he was letting people know that I was an actress and I was living here. And he was talking to his friends who had, one of his friends had a marketing communication agency. And so that friend asked if I wanted to do some voiceover work for them and then eventually some copywriting. And I also started, and my husband introduced me to a lady who had an agency that taught English in businesses. So I went there, and because I was doing that, I was kind of on buses and trains and exploring Belgium by myself, going to all these different companies and teaching. So I became quite independent early on. I was gigging all the time. And then started looking for my own work too. So I was reading travel books, and this travel book was really nice, but it was in Dutch. And so about traveling or about visiting Antwerp. And so I wrote to the company and I said, hey, it's a great book, but if I'm visiting Antwerp, odds are I probably don't speak Dutch. So you need to have these books in English also, at least. And they contacted me a year later and said, hey, we now have an English distributor. Would you be interested in editing all of our books into English and writing a guide also on Belgium, on Brussels? So I did that. So just random acts of business, I would call them. Started to fall.
You like that, the editing and writing the book?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I wrote for fashion magazines. I wrote for political magazines. I wrote for private jet magazines. And then I ended up being the editor of a private jet magazine. Just random stuff kept coming. I know a lot about private jets now too.
Do you think writers can or this type of copywriting, a writer can write about almost anything? Would you agree or disagree with that?
I agree. Yes, I agree. If you are a curious-minded individual, and yes, you can write about anything. I am a person who, I just love research. I love reading about stuff, and I'm a magpie. I like to collect all kinds of information and then string it together in a way that makes sense to me. And that becomes my writing style. I'm trying to explain things in a way that I have taken all this information, digested it, organized it, and now I want to share it back to you through at least how my mind or how I process that information.
Is it safe to say that you're an organized, creative person?
Ooh, organized feels like I organized in what way? In what way?
There's a structure, right? You want to learn something, you want to collect all the information. Then there's a structure about how do you create it and how do you convey that message. I for example, I'm all over the place. I'll write some stuff, I'll look at it, I'll throw it, I'll start again. My creative process is very disorganized until it becomes a thing.
Got it. No, then I guess in a way I am. I like to gather a lot of information up front. So I can't write immediately. I need two things. I need a lot of information and I need pressure. So I usually spend a lot of time reading and gathering all kinds of information. And then when the deadline comes, it all synthesizes, and then I really tunnel in and I know exactly what I want to say and the story I want to tell and how it's going to be structured and what's going to come out of it. And it just kind of goes, and then I'm done with it.
What is it about timeline and creative people? We hate it and love it at the same time. And we need it, because if not, it will never be over.
It'll never happen. It'll never happen. If there's no pressure, I have had days I come into the office and at the beginning of the day, I'm so proud of myself that I haven't overbooked myself and that I'm actually probably going to be able to finish everything on my to-do list. At the end of the day, I've only done 2 of the 5 things because I didn't have the pressure to make it happen.
Well, I agree. That's why I tend to find I just need 2 hours before the deadline, and I prep everything, and then there's something about, I don't know, being with your back against the wall that makes us think more maybe surgically. It's like,
Maybe that's it too, because we're firing off of all cylinders all the time, right? And something has to narrow the hole that we shoot through. And I guess time is the thing that narrows the hole that really targets what we want to say or do or communicate.
sometimes I meet people who give us the article 2 days before the deadline, and I don't like them.
And it's a crappy article, isn't it? It's not as great as it could be if they had waited 2 minutes.
Don't give it on time. You had 2 more days. You could have done so many things. It's like,
or stick it somewhere. Do it 2 days in advance. Put it in a drawer somewhere. Pick it up 2 hours in advance. You're going to rewrite it then, and then that's the good version.
But I have to say that sometimes the rewriting is where the problems arise.
Yeah.
You start over-edit something and you kind of lose the thread of what you wanted. There's a difference between kind of fixing things and editing, like in a big sense.
When you edit, do you read it out loud?
Yeah, so now for the final book editing, I walk around the house and read it. So it sounds like I'm speaking. And then you notice that it doesn't sound good. And by the way, the reason for that is when I launched my first novel, people kept coming up to me in the street and telling me that it's funny, I know you, so I read the book hearing you.
Yeah.
And that's when it clicked for me.
But I think that's one of these editing secrets that anybody could take away. So when you edit, read it out loud, because if you find yourself tripping over the words or chewing your sentences, then it's too much. You've done too much. That's where the need to happen. You need to clean it up. That's my number one editing trick. Yeah.
I can share with you that I remember the first paragraph of the book because I've reread it so many times. I was in a meeting last week and someone said, how's the book coming along? I just started to read the first paragraph because you've been doing it so many times. Here's another question about entrepreneurship. You and I have been meeting, thousands of people. You're traveling a lot for EO. You meet entrepreneurs from different industries, continents, countries, businesses, and so and so. You think being an entrepreneur is like a profession, or it kind of happens to us in a sense?
I take entrepreneurship as a mindset, actually. So I think there are people who are entrepreneurs who are not yet running their own company too, but because it's maybe a process for them. But I think it's a mindset. I also think there are people who are running their own companies who are not entrepreneurs. So there is some kind of desire to solve, fix, improve, tweak, change, create. There's this, it's almost, I guess I'm not a car person, but if I think about people who love vintage cars, and in my mind, they're always like tweaking and fixing and polishing and there's always something to do. That's how I experience entrepreneurship, and it's how I experience entrepreneurs. It's hard to have a conversation with entrepreneurs where we're not trying to solve something. There's an issue somewhere in the world, or in our business, or in our families, or in our friendships. There's an issue somewhere, and we're all trying to tweak it and fix it and polish it.
I heard someone say that in the US in the 80s, if you told people I'm an entrepreneur, that meant that you're either a loser or unemployed, or both. And it wasn't a profession. And in most countries, you can't be a failed entrepreneur and then go and ask for, your severance, right? Like there's no, what was your profession? I was an entrepreneur. It's not a profession. Right?
No. And we don't even get good retirement benefits because of it. The government knows it's not a profession also.
They're onto us. But I think a lot of people they're onto us that we don't get, it's not a profession. What's interesting is that, are we cultivating a culture where it's okay to say, I am an entrepreneur?
We hope so. I hope so. I think I mean, maybe I have a very narrow view or through only my own experience of it, but I certainly do not feel ashamed to say I'm an entrepreneur and quite proud of it. Um, I'm quite proud to talk about entrepreneurship, even in my company, about entrepreneurial mindsets. And um, my husband is a teacher, and I often go to his school every year. And they ask me if they have a day with Taunya, and they get to see about this American living in Belgium, this Black woman living and in Belgium as well, and ask me a million questions. And when I talk about starting a business and running a company, they're really excited about that. I don't find that people are think the ambition word is a negative thing, or the being self-made or entrepreneurship. I don't see that people have a negative response to that.
But I think you said earlier, which I really love, is that some people work as employees and they're really good as an entrepreneurial mindset that they have. And maybe what we should cultivate as the entrepreneurial mindset, and not necessarily I don't work for other people. Because at the end, you and I work for our employees, work for our clients, work a lot. We work more, sometimes get paid less. So maybe the good thing is about that spirit, because it's allowed to fail and you're allowed to try again. You're allowed to change your mind. There's so many good things about being an entrepreneur, which are not necessarily tied to I own my business or I don't have a boss.
Absolutely. We have actually something that we cultivate in our company. It's called the EIR, the Entrepreneurs in Residence. So we actually want to build these kinds of intrapreneurs or entrepreneurs inside the company. That's something that we're trying to cultivate, because I think successful companies need to have those kinds of thinkers inside the company. And again, they don't have to say that they want to run the company. They don't have to put, as much skin in the game as maybe I have or you have in starting our own companies. But we still need that energy. We still need that mindset. We still need that tinkering and that desire to want to polish and improve and to build something worthwhile in this world that's going to, move the needle and impact people. We still need those people.
I built my agency out of necessity, I think, in a sense, but it was always created as a means to an end. I think this year going to change in 2023. I'm moving away from Israel for a few months. I'm going to do a book tour. A lot of my business has changed. I've started a new company around this. I'm now trying
when I
to
grow up,
figure
I want to
out.
be you. I want to be you when I grow up. I'm telling you.
A lot of people have been saying that to me lately. I'm not sure if that's... But I can share with you two things. One, because we're a small company, it was always about people coming in as juniors, getting like their experience and moving on. And this year, my first employee called me 2 months ago and asked me to have lunch.
Yeah.
He was with us for almost 4 years. By the way, he quit after I was in an EO mentorship summit in Dublin.
Okay.
And the realization that we didn't get along, not because we stopped getting along, because it was just, we're trying to make it still work when it didn't anymore, and he needed to move. And he's built a new company, and I'm very proud of him. And I think 23 is going to be bigger than us, which is amazing. And he asked me for lunch to tell me he was invited to teach a course at the college where we met. I was a teacher and he was a student, and he asked me to come for one class to talk to his students. And I think that's where entrepreneurs are created. They come, they learn, they leave. I think I have many employees over the years who built either good businesses or went to be very good entrepreneurs in big companies.
Yeah.
Employees.
And aren't you proud of that, right? Are you proud of that?
Listen, I have over a dozen employees that I'm so proud of and the things they've done. And imagine someone that came with zero experience, first year in college and everything. Next year, his business is going to be maybe 1.5 times my size.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's interesting, the stereotype of entrepreneurs as kind of selfish and egotistical, and we want everybody to do our bidding, and to create so that we can amass a lot of wealth and riches and go away with all the glory, which is so far from every entrepreneur I've ever met who is so excited to get people working on something and then like seeing people kind of go off and either on their own or with their own initiative. It's like planting seeds, right?
You remember the first employee you hired in Belgium?
Oh, absolutely. He's still with me today.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
I'm really happy about that. Yeah. So
So
yeah,
that,
and he's still with me today, and I get to see him continue to grow. And he is certainly not the guy he was 15 years ago, and that's exciting. And then we also feel like we have this little baby together that we created.
I think it's important. I've been trying to figure out a way that as I'm moving forward to leave the business and you leave it to the team and stuff, I'm trying to figure out a way of, you were talking about amass wealth. I don't need a lot of money. I don't spend a lot, and I'm kind of happy with what I have. So I'm trying to figure out a way that from a certain point of revenue, everything else that they would build without me, they will be able to split. And then it becomes kind of theirs.
Yeah.
Just as much as it is mine. And I will only get to stay in the company, do the things I like about marketing. So was content, creative, working on strategy, meeting clients, or stuff that I like. And that's also my forte. Do you feel over the years for you, what you do in the company has changed a lot?
Yes, and I'm trying to make it change more. I mean, I think just like every entrepreneur, we start off and we're quite operational in it. We usually started the company because of something that we liked to do ourselves, and so we were, creating it. In my case, marketing communications, same for you. It was because, I had clients and I was interested in helping clients solve their problem, and then I get another client and another client, and then over time, the company grows. And then now I am also managing people and clients, and managing people, I like less, so less as much. I like inspiring people, but managing people and then administrative and operational, all the stuff that kind of builds onto the company. And that's not really my jam. And then what I do that I love is actually thinking about what the company could look like. Or just as you said, you're looking at, how to structure your company and maybe a new model, introducing a new model in the company. And I enjoy that. So I am in the process, sure, of trying to do more of that and really trying to understand where my real value is in the company. I've determined 3 things. My value is business development for sure, because I love relationships with clients. My value is strategy, seeing what this company could be, how we could continue to make employees and clients happy, and inspiring people and motivating and training. That's where my value is in the company. So then I have to look at all the things that I do against that and say, okay, that's where I should be focusing my energy. How do I delegate? Who do I delegate other areas to, so that I'm not being the worst man for the job on areas where there's certainly people who could do it much better than I can. And that's a hard transition. It's a hard transition. I'm there.
Yeah, I completely agree. What are the things you don't like doing when you delegate it early on?
So everything operational. IT, I mean, anything administrative and operational and financial, that stuff, I delegated early on. I have an amazing operation manager, Kelly. She's everything. She loves to do that stuff. I mean, I can't imagine how anyone could love to do that stuff, and she just loves to do it. So I love to give it to her.
It's interesting to see how people, if you would do something else, what would you do?
Oh, here. Question. What would I want to write a book. That's why I want to be you when I grow up. I want to write a book.
I'll be your accountability buddy if you want. We do that a lot.
That's probably what I need, because the deadline, right? I have no deadline. Nobody asks me to write a book, so I am not writing the book.
The main problem with writing a book is no one cares. No one cares if you write it, if you don't write it, no one cares. And most probably, after you launch it, no one will still care unless it's amazing. You know, I learned that self-published books in the US, the average is like six copies. So that they sold, which means there's a lot of people in the US that don't have any friends.
Yeah. Okay. So Nir, you're really selling this idea on me. Maybe I want to do something else.
If you don't write a book, what would you do? Writing a book is like, you can write a book. We just came back from Web Summit and I was talking to Dave Burnett from EO Toronto, and he wrote a book because he wanted to see if he can do it.
Okay, maybe, I don't know. So you're doing a good job of putting me off the book idea that I've been wanting to do for a long time. No, I think one day I will write the book, but I want to write the book it's actually, the book is what I need for the second thing, which is this tour that I'm going to go on with Oprah and Michelle Obama, where we're going to go around and talk to young people about how the cards that you're given at the beginning of your life does not have to be the hand that you're playing later on in life. So there's something there. Do you know a game called The Big Dalmuti? It's a card game. Have you ever heard of it?
The Big
Dalmuti.
No.
I don't know if this is a Belgian game, or I didn't play it until I got to Belgium, but it's a card game. And essentially, when you win the game, you're the Big Dalmuti. And the next time you play the game again of cards, you get to start first. And you have all the advantages as the Big Dalmuti because you won. And if you are the person who had the lowest amount of scores, you're at the very end of the totem pole. And when you start to play the game the second time, you start with the lowest chances and the lowest opportunities. And it's really like life, if you have already the cards in your favor, you have much more momentum. And the next time you keep playing the game, you have a lot of momentum behind you. Whereas if you are on the lower end of the totem pole, it takes a long time and a lot of hard work to move yourself to a better position in the game. And that's the story that I want to talk to with young people about this understanding that this is how it is. So then how do you have to play and maneuver and navigate within that game set?
I can't find it on Google, so I'm not sure if I'm writing it right. So send me the name afterwards, and we'll add it here so maybe some people want to play. We play a lot of Settlers of Catan. You know it?
Okay, I don't know that. Yeah.
That's actually a German game that became really popular in Israel like a couple of years ago. So people they would meet 3-4 couples and play together. And basically you're settling an island, and you need to build roads and an army and so on and so forth. And you have to trade different things. And I love these games. Love it. I'm really good at this. Like, I can play it all day. And then COVID hit and we moved to play online. So one screen was a Zoom, the other one we would play, which was awesome. And I really love these things. But here's an idea for you if you're willing to try it.
Okay.
When I do a lot of talks, especially with university, students come up with a story. And they say, hey, that really resonated. This is what happened to me. This is an opportunity, and this is what I learned. What if you went on a tour to talk to high school and so on, and you find those stories, and your book will be 30 inspiring stories that you heard as a concept?
Their stories that inspire me. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Because then it's easier to create and edit. And then afterwards, you do the second one, which is kind of like your history intertwined with the next tour that you do. And then...
So, you cannot air this podcast till after I've written that book, because by the time I finish writing it, there are going to be 60 versions of that book inspired by this. By this.
I said I do accountability with you whenever you want. I opt for it, So how do you juggle now family, like EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization? That it's a lot of time running a business. How do you find time for yourself?
I find myself in all of those things. That's how I find time. Because I just added one more thing. I am gonna produce and star in a play. We just started rehearsals last week, so I've added that to the
Wow.
plate as well. Yeah, I find myself in all of those things. So there is not Taunya time and then all those other things. Taunya time is all of those things. I find energy in the work that I do, energy in all of the things I do for EO, energy in the acting, energy in my company. They're all parts of me. And knowing how to appreciate that and recognize that and be grateful that I have the opportunity to display so many aspects of who I am all throughout my day, week, month, year, that's important. So finding myself in what I do, I am not a work life person that thinks that they're separate. It's for me incredibly integrated. I'm an and person. I want to do this and this.
You
It's
don't think, you think, or you don't think there's such a thing as a work-life balance?
I don't think there's such a thing. For me, I think so. I think people take things differently. For me, there's no such thing as work-life balance. It's all the only balance is that I have to just enjoy and be grateful that I have the opportunity to do all the things that I can do.
You're
That's
talking about work-life balance is that you work all week to enjoy the weekend, and then you don't want to go back because you're enjoying the weekend, and you have to do this and again. So I find that work-life balance in the sense is like without saying weekday or weekend, but you're cheating. So it's on hourly based instead of days. You know?
yeah, it's true. I mean, and I do have to. I think probably the people who get the shortest end of the stick would be family, because it's really easy to become obligated to everyone else. At least for me, it's really easy for me to say yes to this opportunity and that opportunity and go, go, go. And so the thing I do need to focus on is to make sure that I am also making as much time or for my husband and for my children as well. And I have two sons, and they're 16 and 20. They're not very vocal. They're not like, "Mom, I need you." They're not going to ever say it. So I need to just make some assumptions of time that I need to spend with them, because they're not going to ask for it, but I want to be there.
So if I would open your calendar, is it jam-packed?
It is, but I also have some little blocks in there, because my calendar would just say busy. You wouldn't get all the details, but there are some blocks that just say focus time that I block out, just to give myself some breathing space, that I'm not obligated to do something for anyone else, that I really have a few hours.
And that what?
Just,
Reading, downtime? What do you do
no,
with that?
sometimes it's focus time for me might be catching up because I've been in so many other meetings or at other appointments. Sometimes it could be that I want to just zone out for an hour, or I would love to say it's reading time. That would sound very erudite of me, but it's usually not. My reading time will come in the evenings before I go to bed. But
I spend a lot of time researching and reading, and I find that really helps our business.
well, I'm one of these Google people, these Google Magpie. I go in and then I read everything around everywhere. If you're going to have fake news, I'm probably going to read it, because I read everything that's online.
I love it. I think we're going to have to do another episode because we're out of time and we have so many other things to talk about.
Nir, I always appreciate talking and speaking with you, my dear,
Yeah.
my big Nir.
First of all, thank you. I knew this was going to be fun. I didn't know how much fun this was going to be. There's like probably another 100 questions I would love to ask you. Any final words for the audience out there?
Say yes and play the scene. I can't say it enough. Don't overthink things. Just do it. Just do it. I mean, they know a couple of things on a slogan, and just do it is really good. I have to
No,
say.
but I think "Say Yes and Play the Scene" is the T-shirt I'm gonna make for you for President's meeting in Malta. And we're gonna
Thank
meet
you.
soon.
And your T-shirt's going to say "fuck the slides," and we're going to
Oh.
stand next to each other. That's our
Always,
books.
always. Taunya, I want to say a huge, huge thank you. It's been a pleasure. For everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning in. You can see us on YouTube, we're on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you want. We're there. If you need anything, reach out. We would love to help. Thank you for all the EO members who've been listening and joining. We just crossed 700 hours of watch time this month. So thank you, everyone. Then I'll see you on the next episode. I'm Neil Zavao, your host. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.